Break and mend, I built the breath. They hunt now, drawn to life, not real, still keen. And frit and fraught with thought and jest no blunt woes. Dodge, duck, flash, shoot, crawl, run, crush the vile band. Cry not, try not, do not hold out hope, no. Your life, your aim will save those with soul. I've always been curious what was the point of this wall code. Today I want to offer you an explanation of what this wall code probably meant. I want to go over some of the specific words, so we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into specific word meaning, looking for individual word translations that I think are relevant. So part theorizing, part just looking at words to make sure we understand what this is saying. It all works together to form this translation of what this code is all about. So I apologize if things are a little wordy, but I think the end result is pretty cool. But in order to understand how we came to this conclusion, I thought it would be helpful to see the words explained a little bit before we just solve the code. So I'll try to make this as brief as possible, but in order to understand the secret message, we first have to know who wrote it. And so I want to present the idea that this code was actually written by Edwin. So when Edwin dies, he gets caught in this storyteller tree. It's like a whole thing in the Pizzaplex that all the animatronics and stuff are running on its Mimic 1 program. Before he dies, he tries to communicate with the Mimic 1 program in some way. He's written all these. So I'll just read it. The entire interior of the hollow tree trunk to about 6 feet up the wall was plastered with large sheets of construction paper. The paper was in an array of colors, but each sheet was marked up with plain black marker. Every sheet of paper was covered with odd stick drawings and strange symbols that were not at all familiar. Squiggles, squares, loops, triangles within triangles, mathematical equations, nonsensical ones that were all tangled up in the symbols. So the important thing here is just the description of what this language looked like that he was writing, and I think that triangles within triangles, it just sounds so much like what we're seeing here in this wall code that I can't help but think that they might be related. And I'll get to why I think it's Edwin writing this, but I think just going over some of the words is already kind of going to point us to the idea that Edwin wrote this. So break and mend, I built the breath. To break something means to separate or cause to separate into pieces as a result of a blow, shock, or strain, while mend means to repair something that has been broken or damaged. I think that this is Edwin describing the creation of the Mimic 1, and the Mimic robot is lashing out at the Mimic, but then fixing the Mimic after he destroys it. In the Pizzaplex stories, after Edwin destroys his creation, he very likely repaired it before he disappears from his factory. This is what's told to us when a group of Fazbear employees are sent in to take care of things after Edwin vanishes from the factory. I'll read you the little snippet so you know exactly what I mean. We're going to go ahead and complete one pretty cool endoskeleton. From the waist up, it looks like it should be functional, but it's not moving. The man snorted, and no wonder, the thing doesn't have legs. So we're going to take some legs off of the clearly non-functional animatronics and add them to the more advanced one. So the fact that the team found the Mimic in functional condition means that Edwin had to have fixed the Mimic before his disappearance. Otherwise the Mimic would not be in good condition, it would be absolutely destroyed from Edwin's wrath, and they probably wouldn't have tried to fix it. The important thing to take away is that the break and mend is likely talking about the Mimic. I built the breath means that Edwin created this new type of life, in a sense. Could be referring to the Mimic 1 or the Mimic itself. The next sentence of the code reads, they hunt now, drawn to life. This is likely referring to the Glamrock animatronics. Edwin was alive and still working with Fazbear after the Mimic 1 program was being used to run the Pizzaplex. He literally saw the changes in the animatronics. I just want to read a quick snippet from that story as well. So Edwin has snuck into this giant storyteller tree that's being used to run the Pizzaplex, and it's running all the animatronic personalities and stuff, and he's just found out that it's being run with the Mimic 1 program, which was his biggest fear. No wonder the Pizzaplex characters were changing. No wonder problems were cropping up all over. It was happening again, and Edwin had no idea what to do about it, because the Mimic 1 program was running all this. And I just wanted to bring that up to give more context as to why I think it is that Edwin is referring to the Glamrocks when he says they hunt now, drawn to life, almost implying that before now, the Glamrocks were not drawn to life. But now that the Mimic 1 program's taken over, they no longer have good intentions. And we literally see this happening through Security Breach. The animatronics are chasing Gregory around the entire game. We can even find a duffel bag message that mentions this exact phrase from the book, saying, "It is happening again," which is very likely referring back to Edwin. But let's continue, I get sidetracked easily. Next, the code says, not real, still keen. This is Edwin informing the reader that this creation of his may not be real in the same way humans are, but that it is intellectually alert. the word keen is described as literally intellectually alert. The next sentence after this, though, is a mouthful, and it seems like it ties into the not real, still keen sentence. It's almost like a really big run-on sentence, because we have not real, still keen, and frit and fraught. So like still keen shouldn't be the end of the sentence. It's not real, still keen, and frit and fraught with thought and zest and just no blunt woes. It's a big sentence. So let's look over all the words there just real quick. So the definition of frit, okay, so for American English, a fused or partially fused material used as a base for, usually it's like glass stuff, but it can also be like glazes or enamels. But the part that really intrigues me is the fusion, the fusing part of it, which is, oh man, it takes us all the way back to the Mimic story. Remember how Edwin takes out his rage on the Mimic? The book describes it as he could almost feel his murderous thoughts pouring through his muscles and transfusing through the metal into Mimic systems. One reason this is significant is because while that's a definition of frit, the sentence has frit and fraught together. And fraught's meaning is filled with or likely to result in something undesirable. So the frit is like the fusing with, and this is like the undesirable result of what's been fused, essentially, causing emotional distress or tension. This is all like textbook what Edwin did to the Mimic. So if we combine frit and fraught together, Edwin is saying that this creation is full of things that resulted in something undesirable, maybe even something dangerous, and it's because of him. And let's not forget, next we have with thought and zest and jest no blunt woes. I usually think of zest as like fruit shavings, but the word is also used as great I can never say this word, enthusiasm and energy. So a very energetic creation, something that never tires. Whereas jest is a strange word, not really used in modern day. It comes from a Middle English word, which in turn comes from an Old French word, I'm not going to try to pronounce either one, meaning a deed, an action, a story. One description of it is a deed or an exploit. It's not commonly used, but it was often associated with knights and heroes of old. So a quick side note I want to add is that a lot of people that played the PAX West demo said they saw knight-related characters in the factory. So for me, I can kind of see that in itself, just tying back to how we see this random castle and stuff in this security breach daycare. Maybe these were all connected back to this 1970s era of characters that Fazbear used to have and whatnot. And maybe more importantly, like even on the dictionary websites I was using to look up the definition of the word and how it's used, the examples they would give are always relating to Shakespeare's work, which is something that Steel Wool has been teasing multiple passages from Shakespeare's writings that are relating to the secret of the Mimic game. So I can't help but think that this whole specific phrase is written by Edwin for that very reason alone. So I personally see the word being used more as actions that this Mimic one has performed in the past, or stories that it's following, but now the stories and characters have become corrupted, mean-spirited, or maybe even lethal. So maybe to explain it better of how the word is being used here, it needs a bit more context. So let's look at the next chunk of the sentence, no blunt woes. So we have and frit and fraught with thought and zest and jest no blunt woes. No blunt woes I think is pretty straightforward, but in case you're curious, blunt is essentially like something that's not sharp. So for example, if you have a blunt knife, it isn't going to work as well as it's intended to. Or an example from a definition I found online is a blunt pencil that has a worn down edge or point to it. So it doesn't really function as well as it's supposed to. As for woes, if you've ever heard someone say woe is me, that's them in great distress, or as it's defined here, great sorrow or distress, things that cause sorrow or distress. So essentially no blunt woes together tells us that this creation will cause significant sorrow, distress, or even worse. There will be no blunt woes, which means the woes are going to be very sharp. So that just means the misery this thing can cause is going to be horrific. Alright, so let's try to summarize that whole sentence now. Essentially what it's saying here is the Mimic one may not be real in the sense that a human is, it's like an AI, but it's very, very intelligent. Do not underestimate this thing. The epilogues show very clearly that the Mimic is able to outsmart even these like human teenagers. And so Edwin is saying that this creation is fused full of things that resulted in something undesirable, maybe even dangerous. It's not only capable of thought, but it's enthusiastic, it's very energetic, it doesn't wear down, it's just able to keep going. Never-ending energy, which creates a terrifying combination because it's infected the animatronics with exaggerated personalities that represent characteristics from long ago characters, but that will cause you direct significant harm. Fazbear made it able to be any character, and so it's able to like use all these stories and stuff that it's learned, but it's going to cause you harm. They're no longer just stories is like a very dangerous creature. And then the second part of the code, the dodge, duck, flash, shoot, crawl, run, crush the vile band, these are literally things that we see Gregory do in Security Breach. We have a phaser blaster, we have the phas cam, we have like running around, hiding behind things, crawling through vents, and ultimately crushing the vile band. This is Edwin using his knowledge of the animatronics to give instructions how to both avoid and attack them, ultimately ending this nightmare that is currently happening again. It's too late for Edwin to help personally, so he's counting on whoever gets his message. As for the cry not, try not, do not hold out hope, no. My interpretation of this sentence is that Edwin is saying, don't get caught up or distracted. You must stay focused on your goal. If you start crying or start distracting your mind with wishful thinking or how you don't want to be there doing this, you won't be able to focus enough to aim clearly and save those that you can. Or heck, if the mimic is able to get into people's heads, he may be referring to a very literal battle of the mind here. Essentially, if you truly want to end this, you have to clear your mind and put your own ideals, fears, etc. out of the way, or you're going to be another victim. But if you can line up your shot, so to speak, you can still save those who need you. Your life, your aim, will save those with soul. And so speaking of souls, I do want to touch on the with soul part as well, because there's a great deal of souls in Security Breach that are likely both souls from older FNAF games still lurking, as well as newer victim souls, like the wet floor bots obviously have souls inside of them. Both of which are technically not with soul, they are literally just souls. They've been killed, so they aren't free though, so they're still here. So I can see this last bit of the sentence being about saving those souls, but I think more likely what Edwin's saying is saving people like Cassie or Vanessa who are still alive and thus have souls still inside of them. Either way, it still makes quite a bit of sense. It doesn't really matter. It could even be talking about all of that. And one other thing I'd want to bring up as well is that for me, it's not that far-fetched that when Edwin dies, when he's right by the Tiger Rock storyteller machine, I think that his soul or essence, or whatever you want to call it, is now part of the Mimic One program. In the same way that other FNAF game souls possess the animatronics and such, or the arcade machines. The difference here being that the Mimic One program has a life of its own, so Edwin doesn't necessarily have much control over it, hence why we only find these words here and not all over the Pizzaplex. He doesn't have enough control over it to be able to spread the warning everywhere. And there are other ways you can interpret this code, but I think the message is roughly the same. It's just, I created this thing and I'm trying to warn you and help you get rid of it, essentially. So whether he's talking about the Mimic One specifically, just infecting the Glamrocks, or if he's talking about how originally there were multiple Mimic endos that need to be deactivated, all of it works because the epilogues mention the multiple Mimic endos, but either way the Glamrocks are infected by the Mimic One virus, and so they've got to be taken out. And it does make a little more sense that we're supposed to get rid of the Glamrocks because they're infected. And so all Edwin can think of is, hey, if we want to get rid of this, this is what we got to do. And so he's hoping that someone will be able to read the message. And since Gregory is a hacker and he's been freed, or has he? But if he has been freed, then it would make sense why he's going around and doing this, because there's people that he does care about. And so to take out the animatronics is kind of like his way of trying to make amends. I think this should make Daco really happy too, because I remember how he was saying he really wants to see somewhere where we get confirmation that Edwin is dead. We see his body or something, but I think Security Breach actually gave us that already. We already know that he's gone just from this code. So what's the point of this? Do I think there was some really big significant drop to this? Honestly, what I think this was Security Breach's teaser for something that was coming up. It was a fun way for the whole community to get together and find out something that's going on. We didn't know at the time what it was, but then once the books drop and now we're getting a secret of the Mimic game, suddenly the pieces all line up. This was a character we didn't know anything about yet, but that was already communicating with us. And that's so exciting to think about. This mystery's been there for 3 years and we thought maybe it's Michael, maybe it's Henry. And I'm not saying it's not, but if this is Edwin, it suddenly makes so much sense. Just some of the words chosen are so specific, even connecting to posts that Steel Wool has been making recently. And they tie so clearly back to that Mimic origin story that I can't help but think this was a teaser for us. Kind of in the same way that Help Wanted had that teaser of the Pizzaplex being built. It's just a really fun way for the community to be excited for something that's coming later. And looking back on it, it just kind of blows your mind. Oh, whoa, I never saw that coming. And so that's kind of what I think is going on here. It's just essentially a message from Edwin telling us that, hey, I made the Mimic. It was difficult. And then he's warning us about how his creation has gone on to infect these other animatronics, and that if you want to be able to stop this, this is what you have to do. And so he's giving you a goal, and he's giving you the backstory, he's giving you the actions that you need to take, and he's giving you a goal. And so that's where the story seems to be going anyway. So I actually really like that. It's really cool. So in order to understand the future, you have to look to the past, and this is literally just a summarization of that. I think it's really fun, but that's all I've got. So hopefully that made some sense, and I apologize if I got too wordy. I just, some stuff like this I can't help it. There's a lot to say, and I want to be sure it makes sense. I don't want to skim things too quickly and then have people be like, wait, why did you, what made you come to that conclusion? I want to be sure I have the details down so you can understand where I'm trying to go with it. But if there's more you need to know, or if you want like more clarification, I do have a lot more notes. I have like several large documents with notes about this, so I'd be happy to discuss more in the comments. Let me know what you think, or if you think this is like Michael talking, or Henry, or maybe some other character I haven't thought of. Let me know, and I'll talk to you later.